Por favor, localize os
Bom dia, senhoras e senhores.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We inform you that this event is being broadcasted in English and Portuguese on the YouTube of the National Industry Confederation. And for those who are here presently, we have simultaneous translation, and the equipment is available outside at the entrance of this auditorium. Be all very welcome to the event SB Corp, the role of the private sector in the implementation of the Paris Agreement that is taking place during the Rio Climate Action Week here in Casa Feijão in Rio de Janeiro. It has the main goals to think about the systemic challenges of decarbonization and other ways to overcome them through innovation, international cooperation, and an alignment between investment and industry. Reinforce the role of the players that are not from the state in the climate agenda, highlighting the power of the participation of the productive center and multilateral players, and positioning SB Corp as a global tool for the delivery of productive sector to the climate agenda. This event represents a moment of concentration between private sector, governments, investors, and multilateral institutions, and will be headed by Casa Feijão, a space created by the Industry Federation of the State of Rio de Janeiro, reinforcing the importance of industry as a transformation agent and also participate in the climate action in the global productive system. To open this event, we call to the floor the president of the Federation of Industries of the State of Rio de Janeiro, Luiz Césio Caetano, representing the president of the National Confederation of the Industry, Ricardo Alban, with the Economic Development Secretary of the City of Rio de Janeiro, Osmar Lima, representing the Mayor, Eduardo Paes. The high-level climate champion, Dan Chiospi. And the chair of SB Corp, Ricardo Mussa. To give the welcoming remarks to all of you, we call to the floor the president of the Federation of the Industries of the State of Rio de Janeiro, Luiz Césio Caetano. A very nice morning to all of you. It's a great joy to have you all here. I would like to greet mainly and especially to Ricardo Mussa, chair of SB Corp, and also Dani Yoshpi, high-level champion of COP30. It's a great pleasure to have you here, Dan, and Osmar Lima, Municipal Secretary of Economical Development. Mauro Andrade, Director of Prumo, and Roberto Aldegui, President of IBP, and also greeting Mauro and Roberto. I extend my greeting to all the entrepreneurs, experts, friends that are here with us today. And also reiterating the reason of great satisfaction participation as the president of Feijão, representing the president of CNI, Ricardo Alba, and that in this important meeting for the climate agenda. SB Corp was a very welcome initiative. It mobilizes the private sector for implementation of concrete actions, and it presents a permanent mechanism for the entrepreneur movement that is dealt in the Conference of the United Nations about climate change. For the Brazilian industry, this is very important. We give a lot of importance to the work of SBCOP that in its approach have chosen a lot of important things. I highlight that the subjects that will be dealt here today have to do perfectly with the reality of the industry of Rio de Janeiro. There is a great synergy with the strategy of sustainability of Firjan. This is one of the pillars in our performance. Firjan, since 2018, participates in the Global Pact of UN, reinforcing its agenda of sustainability and ESG in entrepreneurial and government sectors. We participate very intensely to participate with all the companies to be part of the 10 principles of the pact and promotion of the Agenda 2030 of the SDGs. For our great pride, in 2021, the Brazilian network of Global Pact of UN for 2030 announced Firjan as anchor organizational hub ODS RJ recognize the results of our performance. I was selected to be the president of our federation exactly 1 year ago in August of last year. And before I took place, I requested a research with the board of directors. This reinforced the importance of ESG subject in the view of the entrepreneurs, showing the requirement of Firjan continuing developing this agenda. In my speech in October, I highlighted that we would advance in the support of ESG practices in business strategies. As an initiative in this sense, we promoted in March of this year the union of our entrepreneurial councils of social responsibility and environment in the Council of ESG. It represents more than 40 companies of different industry sectors. And also would like to mention a spoiler. In September, during the second edition of Rio Construction Summit, the greatest construction event in Latin America, we will disclose the ESG survey of Firjan 2025 with excellent results. I will advance. 96% of the industry have stated that they adopt ESG practices in their performance, and 73% they use ESG criteria in the use of their suppliers. So the Fluminense industry is connected with this such an important agenda. I will end now with my words, wishing you an excellent meeting for all of you. I'm sure they will have great results, Carlos Mussa and Dan. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President, for your words. Now we will hear the chair of SBCOP, Ricardo Mussa. Thank you. Good morning to all of you. First of all, to thank you, Caetano, for the honor of participating in this wonderful Casa Firjan with Commenti here. We had the B20 last year, and we have a very positive energy. We feel it here, and it's incredible. So thank you very much for having us, and thank you, Osmar, for representing here the City Hall of Rio de Janeiro. And Dan, I thank you many times, and the ones that are here. And Dan was one of the responsible with Ricardo Alba for the creation of SBCOP. He called me last December. I was on vacation. He said, Mussa, I have a very interesting approach that we want to repeat the success of G20. Do you want to join us? And Dan was wanting at that time to have a pause, and he didn't know that he would be the high-level climate champion, and he's having much more work than I'm having here. So I want to thank Dan for the invitation. I think that for those who don't know SBCOP, I always repeat, Dan, you have to hear this again for the 20th time. But it's important to understand the work of SBCOP. It's a copy of success model that already exists for a long time in G20. G20, it always meets in some country, and it mobilizes the private sector, and the private sector represents a working group called B20. And this work has been done for more than 17 years, helping the public sector to hold negotiations in the right direction. Last year, Dan was the president, the chair of B20 Brazil, coordinating the private sector with G20. It was a great success. I always mention this about the document that we delivered. I was together with Dan in this work, and we delivered to G20 as B20 our final document that was negotiated also with G20. So this shows the force of the private sector with an influence on the public sector when they organize themselves correctly. And with the success, we created SB Copy, that is a copy. So what B20 is for G20, SB Copy is for Copy 30, and it's an innovation that we're having. So I'm sharing with you some data for those that don't know. We have this structure, and we have a council of SB Copy, the great industry and trade organizations in more than 60 countries. You have U.S. Chapter of the United States, CNI in Brazil, CCPIT in China, and South Africa, Japan, Business Europe, and you have a number of associations representing to more than 40 million companies represented by SB Copy. This is a number that's not a small number, and we go to the events of the UN. It's a way that we have never seen the private sector so organized to take ahead discussions for the discussion of the climate. Why is this important? Because we imagine that as of now, it will have more strength, more importance. SB Copy is not only going to be something here in Brazil. It will continue after Copy 31, if it's Turkey or Australia. SB Copy will go to one of these two countries and will continue being a great place for the meeting of the private sector. So the first thing here, Dan, what was stated in the past as an idea now, and it's quite successful. We're reaching a stage now that SB Copy has 8 subjects, as Caetano mentioned, to discuss in depth 8 subjects: energy transition, circular economy, bioeconomy, founding, green jobs and skills, nature-based solutions. These are 8 subjects that we have a great work with 78 CEOs in each of these subjects with their consultancies. And we're ending now all the documents in order to start an advocacy. We will have an approved material approved by the Council of SB Copy, and we will represent with the UN, with André Corrêa do Lago, to you, and to Brazilian government. These are the recommendations SB Copy has to influence the negotiators in Belém. We will receive all the texts until September 1st, so we have another week to finalize all the material, and then from now until Belém, we will continue discussion, ongoing discussion that starts here today in Rio Climate Week on how the private sector is seeing the priorities for the climate discussion. And I think I would like to end my words. What I have learned with the discussion of climate, I recently arrived, I think Diana's together with me, this, now we're very recent. It's very difficult to influence climate discussion, much more than B20 or G20. It's 197, 198 countries, depending if the United States is going to participate or not. We have to have a consensus discussion. It's very difficult to reach an agreement, and the best way to influence this discussion is through the example. The private sector, more than just start by thinking what you can do in the future, you have to see what is already working. And this is a copy that André Corrêa do Lago has mentioned a lot, that is an action copy, a way of contributing and to looking inside to the 40 million companies, everything that's working in the worldwide private sector to fight climate change. And with this example, we will influence the public sector. So from now until December, November, have a lot of discussions based on what is working in the private sector in the whole world. And it's going to be very rich discussion. So Dan and Caetano, what I've seen is that we're having access to a great amount of things that I didn't know. So I'm going back home. I always say, I'm very excited with SB Copy's work, not because I'm giving recommendations or what have to focus, but much more because the amount of access to examples of the private world that we're able to contribute will be very genuine contribution, much more than we expected at the beginning for the work that is being developed, and moreover, I think one of the great legacies that Brazil is going to leave for the next copy is an opening of the private sector and this union of private and public sector. This is a copy of action, and the copy of the private sector will have more space to show, to be able to influence and to speak. So I started this in the past with an expectation, and now I'm very, very excited because we're able really, in fact, to reach a momentum of bringing influence in the correct way. So let's take advantage of the Rio Climate Action Week, Caetano, in this wonderful city. And let's take advantage of this week to discuss these examples and be near action and speak less and do more. This Action Week, the call that SB Corp is supporting a lot, let's start now in doing things and not just thinking about it. Thank you very much, and good luck to all of you in this week, and a good event to all of you.
Thank you for your words. Now we will listen to the high-level climate champion from COP30, Dan Yask. Good morning, everyone. My greetings to our president from Fijan, Caetano, that is also representing our dear Alban. Also, I was not here before. It's such a beautiful house, but also with a very modern and nice building. So congratulations once more. Also, my greetings to the Secretary Osmar Lima in the nice city of Rio, all of you that had the opportunity to enjoy the weekend. Unfortunately, I arrived this morning and I need to return by the end of the day, but I will return to Rio shortly. And also to Ricardo Mussa, that is leading in a way that is very important this news created by CNI, that is SB Cop, and what I'm seeing, this is already a milestone, a reference on how to think about the central topic from COP30, that is the implementation. And we believe that it will be the topic, the central topic from the coming COPs up to the end of the decades, of this decade at least. We are at the moment where the work done based on Paris Agreement, it's very important from the side of negotiation. It's protected us with a milestone, having the commitment from the countries, finding a way to keep a certain temperature based on some actions and guidelines that are part of the global stocktake. And at the same time, the world has a very meaningful growth over the last 10 years, especially on the developing countries. In China, India, it's a good example. Brazil's a little bit behind, but in a certain way, this worsened the climate situation because on one hand, we had a lot of hard work on the mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. On the other hand, we insisted in areas that were not so developed, with requiring the same care, and the production based on fossil fuels of coal in certain regions of the world. It's a good example of what I'm referring to, but it's a part that is normal. I wouldn't say normal, but it's expected of the rhythm of development from these countries. And now, on the second half of the decade, we need to manage that. I have been saying that the dichotomic idea, the dichotomy between development and sustainability doesn't exist, or we will have a way of social, economical, sustainable development, or we're going to have a backyard on the economical development due to the lack of sustainability. And this is clear when we take a look of an example of my city, Porto Alegre. The cost that the climates are imposing to the society are increasing, and they will drain the possibility to accelerate development. So thinking about the single way, the Brazilian presidency, together with UNCCC in a partnership with Marrakesh and the climate champions team that I represent, designed this call, the single agenda for the COP30 action, thinking about the model reserved by the countries in the previous COP, so that we can have the actions for at least 5 more years. And this is one of the 30 SDGs and 6 axes, and I believe that everyone here knows. And for those that don't know, I recommend to take a look on COP website. There, the 30 SDGs say about action, implementation, how to work with mitigation, adaptation, or the factors that are required to have this happening, for example, regarding funding, and a certain race against that. So we need to be very pragmatic and objective to scale up the solutions. And all these solutions, and now talking with the Brazilian head, and we are leading this cycle of COP as of November. So I talk a lot to Brazil. It's almost a thematic part for solutions regarding sustainability. We can consider the renewable energy, the forests, the recovery of degraded areas, the production of biofuels, the production of fuels for aviation, for the maritime sector also, and also to move forward in the chain of mining with the green steel as based on hydrogen and other sustainable sources. So really, it's not only a great opportunity for the world to find out solutions in countries such as Brazil that can have a contribution in a positive way, not proportional to our climate crisis, but especially for Brazil, that also can accelerate its social, economical development in a sustainable basis and very connected to the rest of the world. That would be a very positive change in our standard of development over the years. So due to these facts, this is a very positive agenda. There's nothing negative, considering that we are doing what it is expected from us. Obviously, by not following this pathway, the agenda would be negative here and all over the world, and we would need to live with the inefficient use of the resources and a lot of lives lost also. Considering this, SP COP is everything that what we want inside COP30 is a showcase of real life of companies that are working with the climate actions, and they are available to show the world and the other companies, the pairs, the governments, the city hall, the academy, and working together on how to do so that we can scale up solutions and have a leap faster, so that when we can have better condition the next decade, and that the gain of the next decade can be a gain favorable to the continuity of the process of socio-economical development with a sustainable basis. That is what we need. So I'm very excited with the improvement of this great work that CNI and all the involved are doing, and Davi and Mosa were also published that, and it will be left a legacy very important. And for sure this process, as well as the unified agenda that we are proposing, will keep in the story of COPs and will support to make a difference on our generation to have better conditions in the world from now on. So I ask everyone to be engaged the most as possible with SB COP, with the agenda of climate, because this is a solution for the world, and this is a booster of the social, economic, and sustainable development of our country. Thank you. Thank you, Dan, for your participation. Let's pass the floor to the Secretary of Economical Development of the City of Rio de Janeiro, Osmar Lima. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank for the opportunity to talk to you, but I would like to have a special thank for Firjan on behalf of the president due to the support that the city is receiving and also having this wonderful space. So having not only the refurbishment but also this equipment for so many important meetings, we are having difficulties to deal with different agendas that want to have the headquarters here due to the fact that it's so amazing environment here. I would like also to express my happiness to see this event from SB COP happening on the city, and also thank you Massa and Dan, because the city has a history regarding the climate action. So Rio, since ECO 92, but perhaps before, has built a relation with the climate issue, and we have been pursuing this relationship. Today, I have the honor and the privilege to be the Secretary of Economical Development of the City of Rio. I'm an employee from the National Bank of Development. So I am living in Rio as the federal power and also the city power. But it's important in a thematic event as the one from today, we have the Companhia Carioca of Partnerships of and Investments, where the relationships between the public power and the private sector are built. So I was reflecting about that. What type of role the public power has and which type of role the private partner has regarding the climate issues. So I agree, Dan, that there is no dichotomy between development and awareness about the environment. It's the opposite. There's no development if we do not concern about environment. And I think that the role of the entrepreneur and from the industry, all the private partners, will be always to invest. I think that and I like to be pragmatic, talk about action. It's important to say what is the role of the private sector? It's to invest, to look for the return and the profit. And the role of the public sector is to create an environment in which we can ensure the respect to the environment will not bother the private sector to do what it is good to do. And this line is not easy to find out, and I will use a metaphor, and using the city of Rio in general, the coast is always where the wave is kicking the stone, and this is an eternal fight. And there we have the think and the life happening. We have the big innovations in this moment. And in Rio, what we see is this. We have the largest urban forest in the world. We have a city with the nicest coast in the world. At the same time, we have severe social problems. We must develop the city. We must resolve our social problems. We must generate social and economical development. But we cannot give up about the environment. We cannot give up what we have in terms that is most important. To do this is not easy. This requires public policy, dialogue, construction. Everything requires effort from the public power and the private sector. It's not a problem only from the public sector. It's not a problem only from the private sector. It's a problem from all of us. And there is no use to have the public power saying that the private is bad, they're not concerning about the environment, and that due to this, we need to have a lot of rules and standards so that they will not invest. At the same time, there's no use to have the private sector saying that the public sector is bureaucratic, that is hard to talk with, and that's not understanding the private sector. The parts must talk together. It's what we are doing today. The city of Rio over the last years is being concerned strongly to reduce this issue that what we are doing is try to retake the centrality in an environment with more infrastructure that is downtown Rio. Today we have 20,000 units already licensed, 15 being built, 14,000 sold in the downtown of Rio. We're talking about 30,000, 40,000 people that will live in the most structured part of the city in the next 3 years. We will reduce emission, the need of transport, the need to expand infrastructure, having more efficient on the public expenditure so that we can have a best service for the population. The city of Rio has a fund of compensation through the tax from the city to the companies that are compensating the emissions. We are trying to find out other in the world with our size, and this is not acknowledged. We have difficulty to find out companies to use the resource that we have available. The city of Rio will replace the fleet of buses in the coming 3 years. We are talking about 5,000 buses. The discussion that we are having today, what is the electric percentage that we must consider? And I would say, why not all of them? Because we are short in terms of resources, and to have the electric fleet requires also electric network, also to transform the recharge, to have the structure of garage, all of that. So we want to reach 95% the reduction of the private. The effort and the marginal cost also mean to think from the point of view of the city. And it would be easier to have the city say, oh, let's replace and let's have everything electric. But who will invest is not the city, it's the private sector. So if the city says, let's do something that economically and financially is not feasible, the price will come afterwards. So the city must build, the public power must build the field, level the field. We must build an environment so that the private sector can do what it can do best. And only with this, we will be able to reach this goal that it seems that is distant, but in our opinion, so real in the city of Rio. If we can build here in the city solutions that can ensure the socio-economical development, preserving the environment, we have socio-economical problems and we have the environment to preserve, we will give an example to the entire world. So our goal is to be a reference to the world in the capacity to generate innovation, technology, and solutions to ensure that private and public can work together to resolve these problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for your words. We thank the presidents of all the authorities. This is the opening session. I request you please to take your seats in the auditorium to continue in our agenda. We call to the floor once again to talk about the main actions of CNI, mainly SP Corp during COP30 in Belém. The chair of SP Corp, Ricardo Mussa, and the Sustainability and Environmental Superintendent of CNI, Dabi Bom Tempo. Okay. Well, first of all, good morning to our viewer. Would like to show my appreciation for hosting this event. It's always a great pleasure to speak in the industry house regarding sustainability, and we will show you all our view of what already is the past, what is the experience of CNE with COP, and how will we organize everything for Belém, until Belém, and how SB COP is contributing, interacting in this agenda of CNI within all the events. So the idea is to show all our rationale to you, and we also talk with Musa, and we will be chatting about SB COP, and the idea is to giving you all the information regarding for you to be able to improve the planning. As you also, it's a different copy. It's a copy that needs predictability, and in this way we will try to plan the best way possible to optimize our participation. Well, here I won't go into details what is copy. I think you all have a deep knowledge of what is this forum, but I would like to highlight the importance of this copy here in Brazil. It's a copy that's different. It's a copy that has been working the agenda of implementation has been mentioned in the opening remarks. So the idea is to increase this working line, and surely comparing with B20, the great difference, the copy is for consensus. So we need a okay from other countries in order to continue in terms of negotiation. And here we give a timeline. CNI has already been working COP since Buenos Aires in the COP 10. It's a very technical work where we have the mapping of other subjects have an impact in an industry. We have this interaction, the business rooms. We distribute all the teams in these rooms. We continue with positioning, and we share with Itamaraty in order for them to negotiate with the parties, knowing the position of the industrial sector. It's a work of influence, and we hope, Musa, that all the participants will take ahead this work. And after Madrid, we increase our participation, not only in the advocacy of interest also, but we're open for a trade promotion. We guide the work regarding the schedule in Glasgow and Egypt, and we consider doing a productive agenda for business. And we started in Dubai, repeated in Baku, and now the idea is to take it as SB COP to Belém. Here, just to show you the strategy of CNI, the strategy that we're implementing for a long time. CNI, the DNA is influencing public policies. Each pillar is part of many public policies. For example, last year, the fuel of the future, carbon market, hydrogen of low carbon, everything is contributing, as Secretary Osmar said, to prepare the path for the entrepreneurs to have a legal security with clear rules to operate correctly. And we strengthen all the agenda of interest defense and also promotion. In the promotion, we consider mainly the promotion of low carbon industry to show what the companies are doing during this transition, how are they contributing based on the cases, the fostering business, and also partnerships and network. We're investing a lot with a consideration to international connections. The idea is to speak not only to Brazil, but abroad also. We're increasing this since Dubai and Baku. We have some numbers here. The important thing is I want to highlight the number of countries that we had in Baku stand. The idea is to increase this number. With each copy, we received 30 countries, but it was when we had the idea of SB copy. And here I will pass on to Musa to talk about this initiative, and we will continue. Davi, I think the nice thing of Davi's presentation, I learned this during this period of time, these associations, association of class like CNI, the Confederation of Industries, is to represent with governments. So imagine CNI with Europe, United States, Mexico. What David said, it represents many, many countries in the world. It's very difficult for the private sector to meet. So I think the best thing that we reach, we have more than 60 countries represented by SBCOP. Imagine 60 CNIs in the whole world. I think there's 60 countries that are represented. Likewise, as David said, they have an organization that understands the subjects, and they know how to contact the government. So the most important thing that I see here is if we're able to have these class associations to have a unique or single voice, we will be very structured to influence the governments of the whole world, because this never happened in the past. So this is an example. We already recognize as BCOP, Triple C, our entities already recognized by the UN, and we have a structure already. In the next slide, we're going to talk about how the structure of BCOP. This is a very important slide here on the screen. What do you have here for those who haven't seen it? On the right side of the superior part, Business Council. What is this? These are the associations of the CNI in the whole world. So here is a very difficult council. Imagine to speak a council with the United States, Europe, China, and Brazil together with very different interests, but this is the council to which we have contact. The President Ricardo Obama, this council will not change, and the next copy will continue existing. It's a place where people will meet and talk about all the subjects. Here in the lower part, you have the working groups. CNI, as the host that is managing all this process, they lent the secretariat led by Davi, and we have institutional partners. Veronica will be talking to us, a great partnership. And here we have the working groups. What is interesting here? How does this work? For each working group, for each subject that we have here, we have one CEO of a Brazilian company as a leader, that we call him the chair, and he invites other 8 to 12 CEOs of other countries, other companies. So food system, for example, of Gilberto Amazonas, he invited the CEO of Nestlé, PepsiCo, Wumri, the Minister of Nigeria of Agriculture, that participate of each subject with a consultancy. We have 8 consultancies working with us. The large Maria Emilia is representing McKinsey, BCG, AB, the great systemic consultancies, Fernanda also, that is here working with us, and each of these working tasks have a great group of chairs and co-chairs and members working, consultancy, supplying knowledge, and 2 groups are that are finance and great jobs and skills. So this is a working task of SBCOP. This was not an innovation. We copied the success model that existed in G20. With this working form and consultancies and the chairs and co-chairs, we have everything here to deliver good work. I joke that I don't have no excuses because I have the support of 40 million companies. I have a great CEOs, I say great consultancy, CNI supporting financial resources. We have everything to have a great work. And the next slide, we're going to say about what we're going to deliver as BCOP. This is what we're doing up to now. As BCOP started in December, officially we launched the program in March, and we're already holding a lot of meetings. And we did with André Corrêa do Lago here, this first photo, a first draft of our recommendations. and we were in Paris, and we were in Bonn in Germany, and then we went in London Climate Week, and we'll be here also. We're going to talk what we're going to do now until the end of the year. So we've been acting here since the beginning of the year, delivering already. So which are the great deliveries? I think the next slide is going to talk about this. One of the deliveries, this is an example, whoever wants to go into the website SB Corp, you can see all our recommendations. We already delivered a letter with recommendation for each working task. I always give a bad example that I had in my life for you to understand the path that we followed in SB Corp. We were always working in B20 Indonesia. My working team, that was energy transition, we delivered to the G20 negotiators a letter like this one with 68 recommendations during the negotiation week of G20. So no one read it. It was worthless, the material. So we hope the Indonesia people are not hearing me, because they're going to be very, they won't feel very well. Here, SB Corp is going to be different. For each working task, we're going to want 2 or 3 recommendations to force to have little subjects and to be able to have more influence. This letter that was delivered in June had a draft already of the 2 or 3 recommendations for each working task. The final letter will be between September, when we will deliver the final letter with few recommendations. And it's important to talk how many cases we received and until when is the system open. Well, what I'm going to tell you what I learned during this period of time. In G20, this letter of recommendation, all the negotiators of G20, and we were very successful in influencing the negotiators of G20. What we learned in COPI, and I learned this when I went to Bonn in Germany, it's much more difficult to influence because it's a negotiator. They're not 20 countries, they're almost 200. It's by a consensus. So the best way for us to influence is not to write a document very detailed. It's by examples. So with the SB Corp Awards, we launched a program that is a contest, Olympics of projects, that we requested the private sector, the whole world, to send their best projects, not only projects, their best success cases. Osmar, we're talking about the economic return. Which are the success cases of the city of Rio de Janeiro for sustainable cities that were implemented and that have economic return, that face climate changes, and that is the criteria we requested to everybody to consider. Send it to us. We already received 900 cases, and with these cases, those working tasks will select the best ones. And then, after this, we will understand why this project of circular economy in Pakistan is working. Is it because of public policy? Is it because of the market? What made it be successful? And based on the example, we will go back to the public sector and say, focus on this. Focus on this example to have your public policies. So our expectation that during the COPI, we will have a great showcases. We will be in Belém with all the negotiators, and we will call them to our stand and say, come and understand what is working in the private sector. So when you discuss your public policies, you're based on what is really working. This, for me, is a great work that we have today, because we have 30 years of COPI. It started here in 1992 with Rio de Janeiro, and then in Paris in 95. But there are already 30 years that the private sector is testing many things. And this is statistics. Some things work, other things don't work. Let's see what is really working. Instead of bringing new things, instead of launching a new project, there are a lot of things that are working. What we have to do is just share the best practices. That's what we're doing through these awards, is to bring this to the total knowledge. And those cases that are not selected will be available in the QR code. If you want to access and see the case of the whole world, that are contributing and are scalable, that's a great curatorship of products, reinforcing that the cases can be sent until September 1st, reminding you that what will be delivered as a document is in 3 levels. International one that Musa mentioned, and then we have 2 other levels. The second one about the legacy with the support of Deloitte and all the part related to the Amazon that is done with Accenture and also the Instituto Amazonas 21. So the idea of having a legacy is because you can have a recommendation that makes sense for the world and doesn't make sense for the hosting country, Brazil. So I'll give you an example. This is not the case, but suppose that you had energy transition, that nuclear energy is a very strong recommendation in other world. For Brazil, wouldn't be. So we decided to get the document that's a global document, say what makes sense, what translates this global document for Brazil and the Amazon. So we have 3 documents: global recommendations for Brazil, and recommendations specifically for the Amazon. This makes the hosting country, being Australia or Turkey, we want to engage because they will have a legacy for their countries in the future. That's very important. And also the people from Intensa are looking at us. Besides a macro document being delivered, we'll have a specific one for Brazil. The Deloitte is responsible for it, and another specific one for the Amazon that is a legacy. And here, David, can you say what we're going to do now until the copy? A lot of events, yes, in terms of past, we have an important international participation, as Musa said. We have a mission for France,
França, para a Alemanha nas reuniões de Bonn.
For Germany in the meetings of Bonn, and we ended the international stage. And we started in the national one 2 weeks ago in São Paulo. And last week we started a participation in Rio with another event with the IDB, an event funding from Baku to Belém. We continue with this agenda during this week with this event now in Fisher and others are on the screen. And in New York, we will have a participation that's quite intense, mainly in some partnerships that will have been signed. We will have a main event in the 22nd with Bloomberg, and the idea is to disclose and launch also the products of SB Copy. And
in October, the official event from the government would be in the 13 and 14 in Belém, but as it's a coincidence with a religion event, it was transferred to Brazil, so we will use the following day, the 15th, to have an event with the private sector, with SB Cop in Brazil and with CNI. And we will keep the Belém's agenda from 10 to 21 with the schedule in terms of Blue Zone, and we will be there. Wow. These are some topics that we consider as a priority for the industrial sector. Of course, SB Cop is more than that, but we highlight the 4 that we will take a look closely so that we can provide all the information and do a work regarding the industrial sector. We work with the goal of adaptation. This is a topic very evolved, and also in the national level, in the national plan of adaptation in Brazil, we work also the Global StarTech, and this is important because all the recommendations that are being released by SB Cop has a relation with GST. The fair transition that we consider as green skills is a work that Senai is doing in a very good way regarding qualification, the professional qualification. What qualification and skill will be demanded for the coming years when we talk about green economy, and the topic that is also important, that are the finances on climate actions. There is a specific working group in SB Cop, but it's important to know how to deal with the public and private funding and to accelerate the transition. Here we have the schedule of the week in Belém, just remembering that on October 15 is pre-COP in Brazil, is as it was a kickoff for sharing the positioning with Itamaraty, the federal government, but also showing the agenda that will happen in COP in Belém. On the November 9, we have a welcome cocktail offered by the Federation of the State of Pará, by the President-elect. On the 10th, We have the traditional dinner between CNI and the partners, and also the decision takers, the CEOs, and also authorities, ministers, congressmen in the national level and local level. And then we will have meetings of the first 4 groups of work, just remembering that we have 8 task forces, and the idea is to split this in 2 days, on the 10 and the 11. And on the 11, we will open the stand of CNI in the Blue Zone. This is the official opening, but on the 10th, it will be working in the afternoon so that we can cover the schedule that is planned with the partners of the institution. From the 10th to 21st, all the schedule with stand will happen on the Blue Zone. And SB COP and the strategy from CNI that we saw some slides ago is what will guide the schedule from CNI. And on the 12th, we will have the traditional event, the dialogues, where we will involve the partners and also the authorities in the event, one-day event. On the 13th, we will have the meeting of the board, and we will end in December with an event of post-COP. It's like an accountability for the partners and also for those that participated together with CNI. But we will start planning the next year's COP that can be in Australia or Turkey. The idea is to focus more on the planning than in the accountability, because co-op is a process. When you end a year, we start working on the next one so that we can have the best action in terms of CNI. So just to keep in mind, we have up to the end of August we are still open to receive the cases. September, we will have the formal delivery of the recommendations. Then we will have a work to select the best cases. This is already happening. We will expose this in New York. Then that's why David's detailing what is going to happen in Belém, because it's important to have visibility. One of the complaints about the COP is the logistics and the lack of planning, and we want to show that we are very well organized. We have the week, and then we have New York, Brasilia, São Paulo, then we will have Belém. And we want to leave everything very well detailed. And if you want more details, just get in touch with us. We have everything written and transparent so that you can have the access. Oh, cool. For those that don't know, this is the park of COP in Belém. This is a picture. I think you already saw it. It's important to highlight the logistics in terms of pavilions. This is very well managed. Who was responsible for the work on the green zone was Vale. I went there, so now it's a fine tune. And the blue zone, the government should deliver the asphalt, and this was done. When I was there the last time, this was done, and I believe that the blue and the green one will be delivered before the term. And here we have a map coming to the end of the presentation, where we have an idea of pathways. Together with FIEPA, CNI is coordinating some lines of work and also made available all the infrastructure in terms of rooms, buildings, theaters, so that we can use in terms of side events. So we will have an acting in this hangar, from top down. There is going to where the CNI action will happen in terms of stand. And I have also the acting on this house below the theater of SESI, so it's a walking distance to the blue zone, where we will have the event of the 12th. And we have all the structure on the federation, the last circle below, where we will have the infrastructure, where we will host some side events and also some meetings from the working groups. So just to have an idea about the spaces from the federation to the pavilion, we'll talk about 5 kilometers, but in terms of infrastructure, CNI is ahead, because since the end of last year, we were with this very well managed. Now we need the final adjustment so that we can host all the events. That's it, showing that we are very well organized and planning. Despite all the issues, I think we will have a very succeed COP. So if you can go to Belém, you will have where to be, a place to be hosted. Yes, we will be able to have some accommodations for you. I agree that this could have been resolved before, but the infrastructure is very well designed to have a very good event, not only in Belém, but we have a lot of things going on from here to Belém. So let's take the opportunity of this week in Rio to discuss a lot. We'll have a good panel in the sequence. We have Mauro talk about Prumo. We will have a very good COP. The idea is to say that we are organized, we are well structured. CNI has a lot of experience working with COP, and SB COP is also on the same way. That's it. Thank you. This is the message. Now we have a special session with the topic initiatives focused on the industrialization with low carbon development. We invite the Director of New Business from Prumo, Mauro Andrade. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, CNI and Firjan, for the invitation, Prumo, Porto do Açu, to share with you our plans. I brought some notes taken, but I heard Ricardo and Dan, and I was wondering, oh, now my life is easier. And why do I think that? I think in his speech, it brings something important, that is the adjustment and the narrative regarding reduction of emissions. This narrative, I think we should highlight this process as an opportunity of economical growth, generation of jobs, industrialization, and not only a climate adjustment. It's not that the climate adjustment wasn't be enough to take us there. This is more than enough, but what we see is due to different reasons, the market and the society are not available so far to take this risk, considering the price of the products that are decarbonized, the green products. So I think that this is an adjustment, a speech that it's very important, and SB COP has to do with that. This alignment between building on the good examples from the public and private sector is super important, and I think SB COP performs this role in a very relevant way. When we think about this angle and thinking about the discourse of decarbonization, reducing emissions from the point of view of economical growth and industrialization, we obviously in Brazil has a vocation to be very well succeed on that. It's a single opportunity, I would say. But I think that we should think that this single opportunity must be useful for the industrialization in our country to move forward in the manufactured products. We cannot face this wave of transformation and decarbonization, energy transition, without thinking about that. How can we transform this in more generation of jobs, of wealth with added value? So we must think about exporting electromolecule in the manufactured and semi-manufactured products. As I mentioned before, the markets are not available to pay for that, but there are today some parts on the market that can accommodate this type of product. And I think that we should look for these markets to validate the first investments in large industrial scale in Brazil. We know that the electric sector, it's very well decarbonized, it's very interlinked. We know that there is a very huge power delivered and remaining in terms of sustainable sources. We must keep this in mind. And this is a very competitive cost, by the way. We have a solid base of research and development and innovation in Brazil. So we gather the conditions, and it's not only me that is saying this, the different representatives from the industrial sector. We have the skills and the conditions to have advantage in the production of green hydrogen, biomass. We don't say so much, but the carbon biogenic has a very important value from now on. Brazil is doing very well in this sector. And it's important to use this raw material for industrialization. It's very relevant. But to transform these opportunities into real advantages, we cannot only be stuck considering our competitive advantages, because this is not enough. This is a good beginning, but for sure this is not enough. And following this rationale of the economical growth and industrial development, it's very important to think that what more do we need besides these advantages that we have? I think that we need very well designed public policies. A good public policy brings result. It must have the beginning, the middle, and the end. And we see some public policies well designed, but outside Brazil we have some success cases of public policies. So more than having well-designed public policies, we must think about industrial cluster. We need scale. As we were talking before this event, having a coffee, the size of the challenge of decarbonization and reduction of emissions in the world is huge in different senses. Although we have this feeling that Brazil already did its homework in the sector, but when you think about the sector of transport, for example, I used to say that it's to go to the top of Himalaya without oxygen. It's really very hard. We must have scales. We must think about industrial cluster, bringing scale, bringing the chain of suppliers together, bringing reduction of emission in the logistics, having the structure to export these products. I'm thinking about the product manufacturer and semi-factor to industrialize, to take the opportunity of industrialization in Brazil. So we must think in international partnerships. We need capital. We must think about communitary engagement. We must consider our surroundings. So these are some very important elements that we must consider, that we should put into practice the actions. Some of them are doing well, others no. And once more, the role of SB COP is fundamental. It's what Ricardo was saying. We must gather the private sector. This is not so easy. Many people think, oh, the companies are gathering, and then this is not easy. The coordination is very important, and it's very hard. So, considering the topic of our debate today, what is the role of the private sector implementing these efforts for decarbonization and reduction of emissions? What we do in Porto do Açu, there is an industry port in the north of the state of Rio, and we have the role to identify the main sectors, the more promising sectors, to try to take these sectors to a success case. I will give an example. It's not worthwhile to spend time trying to attract a cement pole to Ilsu, but I'm not close to a consumer, to the producer of raw materials, so the internal market will not observe the green cement or decarbonize because it's more expensive in Brazil. So this is not a place where I will spend energy. I need to spend energy in what is very good, and I will discuss and share with you shortly where we are spending this energy for the segments that we think that it's worthwhile to insist. But just to give an example, that we need a focus, a very important focus, to spend energy in what we really think that it will be competitive. And how do we do this? We include the technical support, the support on the project, the environmental support, the support to access the financial lines. We do this for the investors, the partners that want to go to Porto do Açu. So we have this project of green hydrogen, renewable fuels, biomass. We have a very interesting project that is bio-RNG, to export bio-RNG. So we must spend energy where we think it will work, the success cases. And we do this work that is a fundamental work to decrease the risk of these projects, to take them to the FID for the final phase of investment. And how do we do this? We try to intermediate the partnerships with the stakeholders, the suppliers of renewable energy, the suppliers of CO2, hydrogen. I used to say inside Prumo that we are not a platform of meeting, but we do net making. We place different companies together and we connect them, and in some moments we will have a match between them and they will be able to have a business, and in other moments this will not work. But once more, we should think about competitiveness. If we're not competitive, this project will not be put into practice, and this support us to build the ecosystem. This is a nice word, but what does it mean for the industry, the construction of ecosystem? At the end of the day, is the reduction of operational costs. What I gain in the logistics, I gain with the suppliers, I gain the consumption of energy, I gain by having infrastructure shared for this project. So once more, we should have this very clear with focus on competitiveness. What are the projects that we are considering that we think that we have still to explore and to bring to the state of Rio? We think that we have, for different reasons, we can talk later on. We think that we have some ways to explore the projects of green hydrogen and methanol. So we have infrastructure of energy that we can receive energy by the grid today with certificate, with no need for additional investment in transmission line and substation. We have in the surroundings of Porto Açu, that is the region of Campos do Goitacazes, is an important pole of biomass construction. We can bring the hydrogen, green hydrogen to the region. So we have how to explore, and we have two groups working with us, and one of them, fingers crossed, we are coming to the end of the final decision of investment that is about to happen this year, and I hope we can announce this in COP. It's ambitious, but we need to try. We have some interesting projects also that use in the context in which we are insert. Porto do Açu serves a lot the oil, gas, and mining industries. We have the R&D project to have synthetic fuel with green hydrogen that we call BAC. It's a project with Repsol. And besides that, we have some projects that are being studied for the production of green ammonia, not for exportation, but for the production of green fertilizer in Brazil. Once more, we have a market to be fulfilled in Brazil. You can use the green fertilizer for soy and corn, but this harvest will not pay the green premium, but perhaps the special coffee will pay this green fertilizer because they can recover the cost on the other side. So we have a market to occupy. So if we can occupy, and if I can have an off-taking project of 100,000 tons per year, I have an industrial project that is able to do this in the region, and the workers of coffee that are in a surrounding of 300 kilometers from the port. So we try to understand in the market how can we as a private sector can contribute for the decarbonization of this sector. We also are studying once more based on the biomass on the surrounding of the Açu port in Campos, the project SAF, the ethanol route. Once more, if I have the possibility to provide raw material, if I have structure to export, so we can consider a base of competitive advantages that is very well desired. And finally, we have the project that we are trying to develop with Vale. That is the project of production, the hot iron ore to replace the natural coal, and I hope that in the short future we can replace part of this natural gas by green hydrogen. And there are other things that we are working also, as the production of iron and biomass is a technology from Vale that can be something disruptive. The iron has a demand in the world, and this demand is increasing. To produce this iron with biomass would be something very interesting, considering the technology that we are exploring also. So in a general way, we try to combine this seek for competitiveness in the industrial cluster, and I can share with you later on. I think it's important to share, Ricardo, with you this extensive list of projects and investments that are forecasted. But our seek is for competitiveness. Some things will be electrified, others will need molecules, others will be, neither will be electrified, neither will need molecules. We need to compensate the emissions with the carbon capture. Inside Porto do Açu, we have 2 thermal plants of natural gas that was one of the most efficient in Brazil in terms of emission. But even though they issue, so the GN2, there is an operation, it's issuing 1.7 gigawatts of energy, although it's the most efficient in Brazil from the point of view of emission, it still issue almost 2 million of tons per year. So perhaps couldn't we think about capturing CO2 from these industrial units and other industrial units in the surroundings of the port? So there are some things that we will need to compensate, not necessarily to electrify or to use the green molecule. So our rationale is to attract investment to Brazil in this segment, that it should be very well focused in competitiveness, and this has to do directly with the efforts from SB Corp. So I'm available if you want to talk more about that. And once more, thank you CNI and Feijão for this event that is very important. And this roadmap of events that was presented here is also something that will consolidate the leadership of Brazil in these discussions and will reinforce, because I think the leadership is consolidated, but it will reinforce the role of Brazil in this process. Thank you.
Obrigado, diretor.
Thank you for your words. Now our panel with the subject New Architecture for Climate Implementation, Legacy of SB Corp, and the role of the non-state players will be considered like climate governance and the performance of private sector in the implementation of climate commitments. We call to the floor Global Director of Climate and Inclusion of International Financial Corporation, IFC, and moderator of this panel, Veronica Jones. And the president of the Brazilian Institute of Oil and Gas, IBP, Roberto Ardengui. The Director of Investment of IDB, Juan Parodi. And the founder and CEO of World Climate Foundation, Jens Nielsen. I pass the floor to Veronica Jones.
Bom dia. Got off a plane, so my ears are a little plugged. I might need your help to jump in today. So I'm Veronica Nyan-Jones with the IFC. We're the private sector arm of the World Bank Group. We're the largest development institution globally that's working through the private sector. We could not feel more at home than in the company of CNI, SB COP, and all of you here today. So thank you so much for pulling together this really important gathering. So at IFC, we're kind of known for our capital. It's supposed to be catalytic, but really it only works if we invest in capacity building, we support convening and collaboration with partners like we have here today, so important, SB COP, CNI, WCF, industry, our brothers and sisters at IDB, and all of you. It's also essential that we provide credibility, so we do a lot of standards work, and we work to crowd in others, other investors, and I think all of these things align so well with the principle and the mandate behind SB COP as well, and so we're really thrilled, and thank you, Musa, Fernanda, and team. So we're going to jump right into it. We're starting a little late, but this is a very agile group, and you have been very attentive, and so we are going to wrap up on time, and that means that all of us are going to be even more succinct in our reactions, if that's okay. And I'm giving my panelists fair warning. I think many of us are just arriving. I might have a few surprises for you along the way, if that's okay. So first, we are focused on non-state actors. Implementation for climate action of non-state actors. Those are a lot of actors, right? So the different institutions you have up here today, we're just a fraction, we're just a slice. Many of us wear many hats, but I think it's important that we recognize that non-state actors are many groups, all of whom are essential for the climate transition to happen successfully. So raise your hand, please, if you work with financial institutions. Directly, indirectly, be proud, raise them high. Okay, thanks. Now raise your hand if you work with real sector companies. So manufacturing, energy, wonderful, good to see you. Can you raise your hand, actually raise both hands if you also engage with government in any way. Raise both hands. Okay, I think some of you are being shy. I think a lot more of you do, but thank you. And then the last thing, give me like a Beyonce single ladies wave if you think that we all need to be engaging more with all of these different non-state actors to achieve climate action. So that's oh, my single ladies, oh, my single ladies. Okay, thank you. All right, and with that, we have three really valuable perspectives here today from different non-state actors, and I'm actually going to start with you, Juan, my brother from IDB, if that's all right. Can you help us, and I'm going to recall Musa's insistence that, one, we're always using practical examples to show people the way forward as proof of concept. And also I want to recall what Dan and others said, that also development and climate are not in competition. They are essentially intertwined. And so also as you share examples, please also let's think about how people and local communities and SMEs can always be benefiting from the initiatives that we're taking forward. Those are my two challenges to you. So, Juan, how can multilateral institutions structure permanent financing mechanisms to support climate implementation? And I think the structuring is key. The permanent is a huge challenge.
Okay. Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here. Well, I will try to give as many as real examples as possible. We all know, we are aware of the challenges on the financing side of all these discussions, which is the number that you all have heard, which is the $1.3 trillion needed in the upcoming years. This is a per year number. Some stats basically say that there's around 100 trillion assets under management, globally, but 2% of those, excluding China, come to developing countries. So we were discussing at IDB, what's the reason behind that, and basically, as a general concept, we understand that there's certain gaps that need to be closed in the form of regulation, in the form of credit ratings, in the terms of sophistication of the client. So the reason why the MDBs need to step in and try to solve these issues is basically through bringing scalable solutions in order for redirect these investments into the region, in our case in Latin America and the Caribbean. So basically, the instruments that we have been created and trying to step in into the market, they are a wide range depending on the sectors and depending on the solutions that we want to bring. One specific example, and it's one of the most recent ones, it's, we call it capital recycling model, which is nothing else than purchasing, performing portfolios from institutional investors, and then what we do is, in exchange for that, we buy those portfolios, and then what happens is that we release some capital for these institutions to invest in capital-related projects or investments that will obviously be aligned with the NDCs of each of the countries. So this is a concept that we're recycling capital, from an institutional perspective, and then, in line with the scarce of financing. Basically, what we're doing is recycling the existing capital, at least while we start bringing more and capital into the region. So that's one specific example. The other one is on the blended finance side. So obviously, we all heard about EcoInvest and FXEdge, which are, basically what they do is they combine concessional funding with private investment. So basically, with EcoInvest, we've phased it, obviously, in different, I will call it tranches, but basically the first bid was more on the generic side of the climate impact, so that mobilized, or is expected to mobilize, roughly 45 billion reais, in the upcoming 2 years. Then on the second phases, we have in roughly 30 billion reais for projects that are related to deforestation, and then we have similar phases looking specifically for the Amazon and others for capital itself. So basically, what we're doing is just we're blending resources, and that will be obviously depending on each case, and sufficient incentive enough to to bring additional concessional funding to mobilize. Well, there's others on the general perspective, obviously risk mitigation, de-risking, from an environmental, social, but also from a credit perspective. So basically, what we're doing, on the private side is basically providing guarantees, for example, on DCM, so in capital market structures. So basically, we're providing guarantees, full or partial, and that applies obviously for the public side as well. On the sustainable link side, also on the public sector, there's incentives for governments where there's borrowers that meet certain targets. There's basically some incentives in the form of grants for them to achieve certain metrics. The same applies with the companies as well when they meet their KPIs on their sustainable linked bonds or on the loans, etc. So that's obviously from a structural perspective as well. And I will close out by talking about the thematic bond aspect, which is obviously an asset class that has been created, but we believe that this is just the beginning in terms of you have the Amazon bonds, blue bonds, but this asset class obviously needs to increase and to be more dynamic in order to bring as many as resources and redirect all these resources into the region.
Thank you so much. I think we totally support the focus on thematic bonds and the massive impact of the bond market and how the credibility and the consistency of application is key. I also really appreciate your focus on guarantees in different shapes. I'm going to turn to you now, Jens. So you wear multiple hats too. So Jens, particularly, you're here representing the World Climate Foundation, but you also represent a lot of institutional investors. And so I wonder if you can share with us, how do you see different international platforms supporting concrete acceleration mechanisms in both of those spaces? Thanks.
Well, thank you for inviting me here, and thank you for the question. Veronica. It's a very tough question, so it's also very hard to answer. I would say that we started as a protest movement back in 2009 at COP15 in Denmark, where business and finance were not invited inside the holy halls. It was only governments and NGOs at that time, I would say, right? Now the situation is different, and I think it's a great achievement that we can sit here today and look at engaging business through the SB Cup at the large scale. So just to frame sort of the developments since 2009. In 2009 in Copenhagen, the world tried to get a legal agreement, a legally binding agreement among countries. It was no success, and that led to a more process-oriented agreement adopted in Paris, right? And a process or an agreement that needs to include not only government, but also business that sits with the solutions, and also the finance sector that has the money, basically, in this world. And also, of course, the NGO, civil society, to all work together to achieve what today is called the Paris Agreement. The year after, and Dan mentioned that, the Americas Partnership was adopted as a formal mechanism to include sort of what you call the private sector in the COP process. Then to the last big COP before COP30, COP26 in Glasgow, there was a very strong focus on the long-term commitments, the net zero commitments by 2050. And there was a very, very orchestrated process by the UK government and others to make sure that that was the focus. And going back, I would say all these elements have been quite successful. And there's also been reviews made of the COP process that it does seem to have worked quite well. So despite all the criticism, I would give it sort of a hands up on the COP process. Now we are approaching COP30. And now we're not talking about 2050 and commitments far out when you're not the CEO of the committing organization anymore, but implementation. Implementation here and implementation before 2030. And that's a big task, I think, for Brazil to manage, right? So when you look back, I think you have to see the engagement in this broader perspective. And I think what you can see when things work is the following. First of all, for non-state actors, it has to give meaning for the individual organization to commit. It's all fine to talk about development, but at the end of the day, whether you are a business, financial institution, even a government, it is what is in it for you. And it's very important to be successful that we find a way to translate sustainability and the notion of sustainability also that came out of the Earth Summit here in Rio, into something tangible. How can you create resilience towards the risks that you face? How can you transition towards a more circular, towards a much more regenerative economy? And thirdly, where are all the business opportunities in this change towards the green economy? And I think it's a very legitimate time for the SB Cup going into this process, also to try and scale the engagement of the private sector in this. Secondly, it's very important to move from convenings, and the COP itself is one big convening, but to processes, because in this world where all kinds of production or services, it moves in sectors. Right? And it moves in sectors where you not only need to deal with business, you need to deal with the financing, you need to deal with the regulation. So it also requires that you work across sectors. And it's very important to have that sector drive in a very efficient way. It can be mining, it can be food, it can be energy. That's where you see the change happen. And that's a long-term process to get that engaged. And then the third important element, I would say, when things are successful is that there's a real attachment to the global impact that you provide also, right? So you have to translate these development objectives into something tangible so that you feel part of the global process. But I think we are improving on that.
Thank you so much, Jens. It was a difficult question. I'm going to ask you to wear your investor hat later in the conversation,
Yeah.
but I think you're coming back to, if people, voters, don't see what's in it for them, don't see how it benefits them at their kitchen table, then the private sector will never have the durable policies and investment landscape that it needs, right? So it's a perfect segue actually to you, Roberto Ardenghy. So I know Ardenghy is really your preferred name, so we'll stick with that. Now we know you well. Coming from the oil and gas sector and representing, their institution, what do you see as the ways for the sector to contribute, but also, as Jens said, which I totally agree with, based on enlightened self-interest and the mutual return that you can also get out of this transition? So what is the role and what are the key actions you're seeing going forward?
Thank you. Thank you, Veronica, for moderating this panel, and, well, thank you for inviting us also to participate in this discussion. And when I see what is the role of the oil and gas sector, and I think that we have two participations in this process. First, we are part of the problem. 78% of the global emissions are coming from the fossil fuels. Yeah? Why is that? Because we are bringing carbon that was in the subsurface and bringing this carbon and burning this carbon to produce some kind of or energy or a byproduct. So this participation is immense, and it's we recognize this. This is science. And why is that? Because well, when I see this room, I see this yellow window there. I see this podium. I see this chair that I'm seated very comfortable with this foam. I see this podium, and this is all oil and gas. Basically, in a regular business environment like this one, 84% of all those products are made of oil and gas, and different products. I can go over and over and mention to you each of those things that are in this room are made of oil and gas byproducts. This is a kind of decision that was taken many years ago, since the Industrial Revolution, that we are using this amazing product that is first the coal, and then the oil, and now the gas, to provide us a lot of comfort and safety. As of today, you average people, you live better than any king during the medieval ages. You have a better comfort. You have cooling or heating. You eat better than the king. You have a better health than the king. The king lived normally. The average life expectancy during the medieval age was around 35 years old. Now you are 60, 70, in some countries even 78 years old. So this is a solution or a way of living that we, the society, produce over those 200 years. So change that is very, very, very difficult. Change that is going to be very, very paining for society. And we have to understand that, because sometimes people have a lot of dreams around the energy transition, and dreams are not projects, because dreams are they are fine for maybe giving us some guidance or some ideas for the future, but the fact is that 80% of the energy produced in the world today comes from fossil fuels.
So tell us, what are some of the projects that you would get behind?
Yes,
that
when you see this, and we see this participation, and what I see a lot of commitment with this agenda. You heard Mauro from Prumen. This is just one example how companies are today using these resources. And I tell you, we have a lot of research, including for research and development. In this country here, only the oil and gas sector has every year $2 billion for research and development. And this is by far maybe the most important part in terms of research and development in this country. When I see, for instance, Equinor with this amazing product that they have in the Northern Sea, the Northern Lights. Northern Lights is an amazing project in which you capture CO2 from industrial installations in Norway, and you bring this to the facility and you reinject back to the reservoir. When I see the biofuels committed, when I see that our companies that are represented in the oil and gas climate initiative, all those companies have committed themselves with net zero in 2050 and reducing dramatically the amount of methane using technologies. So I can go over and over and mention to you many technologies. Today in Brazil, for instance, because of Petrobras technology and Petrobras decision since 2006 from the pre-salt area that today produce 75% of the oil in Brazil, we have dramatically reduced the CO2 emission per barrel produced. We have basically reinject back to the reservoir 40 million tons of CO2. This is represent 25% of the whole CO2 reinjected by the industrial area in the whole world. So those are the technologies. So and to close my comments, we are part of the problem, but we are strongly a part of the solution because we have knowledge and we have funds for that.
Thank you so much. And I think, again, you're underscoring that there is a lot of future opportunity in terms of new investments from the private sector that will benefit the private sector and also help with a less painful transition to new, more regenerative production and consumption models, which is what we all will need in this world. And I think then it brings us to our next point, which is really highlighting governance, right, and accountability, because I think everybody sees that there is opportunity and we need to channel finance into that opportunity, but the governance is not always there. So Juan, I would like to turn to you again. I mean, how does the IDB and other MDBs, you're welcome to, implicate us if you like, but collaborate both with private but also public banks to help create these incentives, but with governance that, again, I think we see a lot of brilliant small examples and like shimmers of hope, but how are we coordinating to scale them and creating the governance structures to also, be accountable? Thanks.
Sure, thanks for the question. I think I will start by saying that I think we all agree that in order to be successful, we need to, to be better coordinated amongst all the stakeholders that are, involved in this discussion. This includes obviously the private sector, the public sector, CSOs, so every single institution that is interested in this common objective. Obviously, it's something that we need to do. And as an MDB, and together with the World Bank and the IFC, obviously, we understand that the only way to to get this done is by collaborating. So for us, collaboration is basically the main aspect of what we pretend to do and what we are doing. A few examples of that, it's on the IDB Invest side, we have this Amazon Finance Network, which is 46 or 47 institutions that we have blended into this common objective to provide solutions to a wide range of sectors, and obviously this includes MDBs and private institutions. We also have on the private sector as well, the Green Coalition, which is, I think 17 institutions, 3 of them MDBs as well. So as much as an MDB, together with the local development banks, we understand that we act as the first or front runner in order to mobilize and to organize, including, from governments and climate and social and so on. We've organized, or we separated a little bit of our efforts in, I will say, in 3 major angles. So the first one will be how we can help to prepare the projects to be financeable and bankable. And this includes obviously our works in PPPs, our work in advisory services and blended finance and so on. The second one includes a little bit more on the collaboration side in terms of the financing structures that we need to have in place. We have a very small example that we did with the IFC as well here in Brazil, which it's a very small project, a very innovative project, but basically, it only happened because you had many stakeholders coming and with a common objective. So you had equity coming in, you had subordinated, you have mezzanine tranches, senior tranches, you have CSOs involved, together with to make the farmer financing to work on. So, and this was I remember a $5-6 million project, right? So we need to escalate this 100 or 1,000 times in order to be truly scalable. So I just bring this example because it's important to understand how complex it is, to coordinate, even for a small project like this one or for a $100 billion project. It's really difficult, and in order for us to scale and to to bring scalable solutions, obviously we need to scale this tiny solutions into much larger projects as well. And lastly, just before I close, I know we are out of time. I will say that it's important as well when we talk about early stage projects. And this is something that I know that the IFC has a very active team, and we're working together with your team as well on the upstream. So we want to be there to help the projects, to be ready and financeable and bankable since early stages. But this also comes in the form of equity as well. So we want to, we at least in IDB Invest, we increase in obviously our equity capacity in order to to step in. We understand that obviously debt needs obviously steady cash flows, and sometimes these are not ready for climate related projects. So basically what we're doing is try to increase our equity capacity in order to do that. So yeah, I will stop there.
Thank you so much. And I think I'm going to turn to you next, Jens, but I wanted to also appreciate, in addition to these new financial structures that are desperately needed and much more collaborative, and it takes there's a lot of coordination cost that nobody knows how to bill exactly or how to recover. And that's one of, I think, the benefits of SBCOP and CNI and others, helping to, fast forward a lot of that coordination cost. You talked about, Ardenji, really these issues almost of culture, right, that we're struggling with. There's a huge cultural shift. And Jens, you were telling us about the context historically, which sometimes we forget. And I appreciate that you reminded us that huge progress has been made to put the private sector in particular sort of at the front of not only being part of the solution, but also having some responsibility and accountability, right, if we're going to show up. So what do you think needs to happen now? What should we do differently? What will you do differently, and what are you encouraging your investors or the various constituents you work with? Because before we wrap up, and I think I'm going to turn to Musa in a few minutes, but I would like to hear from each of you something different that you're going to deliver or a different behavior that you are engaging in. Jens, over to you.
I think that, so I've been to 16 COPs and have made business at
you said 60.
16.
16,
There hasn't been 60 COPs.
That's what I just wanted to check.
So I have personally seen a lot, and I think that we can do a lot more in terms of learning from each other and scaling solutions, right? That's on the solution side. Then I think we need to learn much more about you going beyond when we say collaboration to actual agreements, right? What you mentioned before was that we were involved in the largest capital commitment at COP26 in Glasgow, which were 42 pension funds that committed $130 billion to invest in climate before 2030. So that was not long-term net zero, but capital commitments now, and it goes really well with the investments. That was done in partnership with the Nordic governments at Prime Minister level that promised the right fiduciary frameworks for the pension funds to basically earn the profit that they need to earn, right? And we need much more of those public-private partnerships, right? Because we need changes in the market structures. We need to work also with models that you are indicating where we get work with public finance to attract and multiply much more private sector finance moving into to emerging and developing markets, right? So I would say two things: scaling of solutions, learning what has been done in different countries. I think, as I said before, an initiative like the SB Cup can be really strong in getting a lot more business in play and scaling solutions. And then this public-private partnership collaboration model.
Okay, thank you, Jens. And I mean, regardless of what number, regardless of how you calculate the gaps, we know that 90% of it is going to have to be filled by the private sector. And ideally, as some of you said, ideally we are growing local capital markets so it can be filled more locally in local currencies with more locally applicable solutions. But we have a long way to go to get there. Thank you. Can I come to you, Ardenji? What's one thing that you're doing differently? And in particular, you were starting to get to, but because of time, forgive me, I rushed you, this just transition concern of needing to provide energy that's reliable and low cost to masses of people and small businesses, while also helping to enable a transition where they also have opportunities and are not left behind. How is the oil and gas industry thinking through that? And I also just wanted to underscore, I appreciate you saying about oil and gas, how much of it, the same with mining, right? Everything that isn't grown, that we're sitting on or is in our bodies or we're using is either mined or coming from oil and gas. And part of that is just the awareness, right? Because unless people understand that, they can't be part of that transition effectively. Thanks.
Yeah, you touch a very important point, because when I see the private sector, and I'm here sitting as representative from the private sector for this discussion, so important how we do a orderly, just, and equitable energy transition. I think that from perspective from the private sector, I think that we need to work very hard on carbon pricing schemes. How we price the activities that capture by natural-based solutions, capture CO2, and on the other hand, the activities that somehow produce CO2 and harm the world by global warming. How much carbon have we emitted to produce this particular glass? This is very important from the perspective of the private, because if we have a price for something, we can trade it, we can compensate, we can use this positive price to pay this negative price, let's say. And this is, I think, a very, very important challenge that we need to progress. Maybe during this COP30, we are going to have some progress in this idea. We have to avoid double calculation. We have to have a good metric for really going to the most individual part of our activities and price really anything that we produce in a regular basis around the world. And because this is going to be without that, it's going to be very difficult for the private sector to finance it, because we're not going to just take our money from our wallet and send money to something because you are going to do something good for nature. We need to have this, because if we have a commitment to in terms of reducing, and we are looking for net zero in 2050, we need somehow to know how much this is going to cost. because this is going to be very, very important for the kind of product that we will continue to produce. You see the estimates from the production of oil and gas are growing. Well, I mean, today we are consuming 100 million barrels of oil. In 2027, we are going to be consuming 104 million of barrels. Some estimates from OPEC indicates that in 2040, we are going to be consuming 116 million of barrels.
And so I really appreciate the emphasis on carbon pricing for sure, and doing all of that in parallel. Is there a particular thing that where the oil and gas industry within its control is doing differently right now?
Yes, our idea is to continue on this push for technology and innovation, because we are not going to reach, as I mentioned, if we have produced a society that is highly dependent on this product, and if this product will continue to play a very important role for our daily lives, so what we need to do is to dramatically reduce the amount of CO2 produced. So technology is the key, and technology and innovation is the key for the future.
Thank you. So we're almost wrapping up, and I'm looking at Musa to come up soon, because I think he's giving the final. But I actually wanted to turn to you in the audience and see how easy it is for us to think about the solutions that need to be provided collectively, like the structures that need to be built collectively. But what is the individual behavior change, the individual institutional change that we are committing ourselves to work to every day? What are we going to do differently tomorrow as a result of being in all of these meetings? And I think we have to wake up and go to bed asking ourselves this question, because as we all know, culture eats strategy for breakfast. If you've ever done any management consulting, you know, so it's really easy to slip back into the cultures and the behaviors that are comfortable and that are historic. And so part of the benefit of communities like SBCOP and CNI is reminding each other to consistently be challenging what's the behavior today that we're going to do differently than what we used to do yesterday. And so I appreciate my fellow panelists being very accommodating with me as I try to nudge a little bit. I'm going to turn to Musa to let him close us, but before we do, I want to ask each of you, because just to be consistent, we're doing climate weeks around the world. So we wrapped up a conversation in London, and everybody had to share a song that captured this spirit of action, of implementation, of momentum, of doing things differently and taking accountability. And so I'm going to ask each of you to share a song, and as Musa decides how he's going to wrap up this wonderful morning. I'll start to give you extra time. So anybody heard of the musical Hamilton? Hamilton, maybe you've heard of it? Okay. Not that many of you have seen it, maybe. There's a song in Hamilton, and it says, I am not going to waste my shot. I am not going to waste my shot. Just like my country, I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I am not going to waste my shot. And this is how I think of COP in Brazil. Let's not waste this shot. Jens, over to you.
What was your question?
A song that captures this in your 16 COPs, surely in your protest movement, surely you've come across a song that captures. Do you want to go ahead?
I will save you. I will give you some time to think. You. So, I will say there's a new song that my young kids love, which is called "Ordinary." So it's on the top, I don't know, 10, I guess, on Spotify, on the global one. And I bring that because I think what we need to do here this week and up to COP30, we need to be extraordinary. We need to do way more than the ordinary in order for, to do everything that we understand and we think we should do in order to reach the goals that we have. So that will be my song. I will not sing it. But
all right, next time, after the reception, thank you. Jens, thoughts?
Yeah, I think in these geopolitical times, and with the enormous task of COP30, I would say You've Got a Friend by Carole King.
Love it. You've got a friend. Okay. In case you don't know it. All right, over to you, sir. Last one. And then hopefully Musa
Yeah.
will give us a song as he wraps us
I
up.
was thinking about your mention this Hamilton music and not losing. It's not losing a shot.
Not going to waste my
Waste a
shot.
Yeah, not to waste a shot. And during this weekend, I was reading the last letter from André Correa do Lago that he mentioned. He's preparing some letter. I highly recommend you that you read this series of statements because he is building up the ideas for COP30 and calling for action. And I was listening to Musa doing his first comments this morning that we need to be more focused on the results and what kind of thing we need to bring from this exercise. So I think that what we need, maybe in English, is less talking, more doing. And then I decided to translate this in Portuguese because Portuguese is amazing language and it has a lot of opportunities. And then I decided to say this phrase: menos falação, mais fazeção. That's the message I bring to you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I want to appreciate the oil and gas industry. They're so innovative and creative. They're not even answering the question. They're just reinterpreting it and coming up with a new song, a new motto. And that's the kind of invention that we need from one another. So thank you all so much. Really appreciate your time and wisdom today. And appreciate you all for being part of this really critical, action-oriented gathering. And with that, Musa, I will turn over to you, sir. Thank you.
I'm going to have the closure very quickly.
Isso. Só para falar rápido o fechamento.
Just be very brief. First, Veronica, thank you very much. Veronica, I met her, I think, in Washington some time ago, and she represents a lot of my journey in this issue of climate. I want to share a little bit. I'm going to talk about the song also, but it's incredible how many people I've met that are outstanding. And I always give the example, Veronica, at home with my daughter. I have two daughters, and they're very engaged in this subject. And every time I go on a trip, I went to Washington, I always come back talking about the initiatives, the people that I met. There are a lot of initiatives. I was talking about the World Climate Foundation. It's an initiative that started by itself. So there are a lot of things happening. And at the end, my daughter said, Dad, but things are not working. So many people involved, so many things happening, so many initiatives, but why doesn't it work? So many intelligent people together. It's not easy. Our journey, climate, is very, very complicated one. And in fact, when I sit down with intelligent people like Veronica and FC people and everything, a lot of good things should happen. But I think we don't organize ourselves very well. I think if we organize ourselves better, and that's my hope, that as BCOP we will organize ourselves, and it is not to be bold. I think a lot of things happening, many intelligent people, and a great amount of countries and people, they want to do the correct thing. Even now, and I see the United States in another position, but I haven't seen any CEO of great companies. Sometimes they want to just change the words. But I was talking now with Mauro. He was giving an example now that we have to stop dreaming a lot and start. The best is the enemy of the good. We have to try and organize ourselves better and make things happen. But I am very excited, Veronica, because the people that are involved in this subject, there are many intelligent people together with good ideas. What we have to do is organize ourselves and make it feasible. I think the moment we're going through in the United States, giving a push back, is making the rest of the world wanting to make things happen and organizing ourselves better. So I'm very optimistic. You talk about all the songs. I love John Lennon. I think, Imagine. I think we have to continue dreaming. We cannot stop dreaming. We have to be very, very practical and make this climate week become feasible from now on. So, seeing this fan with oil and gas, and we're calling Foundation, IDB, and you also, I'm very happy because I think we're cooking something, and we have to organize ourselves in order to make society be obtainable. We have to continue dreaming because I think the next generation is a better generation than ours, and we have to give them hope with practical things. Let's have a nice Rio Climate Week this week, and let's prepare ourselves. Let's not waste our shot. That's right. And make things happen, and make the COP in Berlin the best COP of all times, in spite of everything. Good luck to all of you. Thank you. We thank very much the panelists here and all the participants that have been here face-to-face and remotely. We remind you that please return the headsets, and we invite you all now for a brunch that will be served here on the room beside this auditorium. Have a nice afternoon. Thank you.
You look very familiar.